Hello again. This is Brian Wallace from CLA, your laundry association. As we start to get to the midway point of 2025 and most state legislatures having adjourned, I thought it'd be a good time for a legislative and regulatory update from CLA. Big part of our mission, and it's important that we all stay up to date on what's happening. Let's start in my home state of Illinois, where we have engaged a lobbyist this year on the microfiber mandates for commercial clothes washers. We hired a lobbyist. We were able to get our amendment approved, which means that the current legislation would eliminate commercial washers from the mix, leaving residential washers affected by this legislation. And as a quick refresher, this is the legislation we saw in California in 2023 that would require every washing machine sold into the state to have its own microfiber filter on board each and every machine, which we know is ridiculous, too expensive, not feasible, and all those other reasons. So the Illinois legislature adjourned over this past weekend. The bill did not move to a vote, but at least the current version of the bill has our amendment on board. So we'll have to keep an eye on it as Illinois is likely to reconvene this summer and again in the fall for a veto session. So we'll keep an eye on it, but so far we're doing a good job with the microfiber issue. It was also introduced in Oregon and New York State this year. Neither of those bills made it far enough where we needed to intervene, but we're certainly keeping an eye on it. The other main issue, as you know, number one priority for us is sales tax, and more specifically the sales tax exemptions enjoyed by laundromats in 41 of the 44 states that have a sales tax. If you want to have a sense of what that would mean to you if it were to be in effect in your state, take your going rate for sales tax in your community and take it right off the top of your gross sales at the laundromat. It's a devastating impact financially, and that's why it's something that we're so focused on each and every year. So where do we stand in 2025? Well, speaking of Illinois, we are now on watch for Illinois because the spending gaps have not yet been filled in our state. So we'll be monitoring any threats of repealing sales tax exemptions very, very carefully. We've had a smattering of introductions this year in some unfamiliar places. Texas, it didn't go anywhere. Missouri, it didn't go anywhere. Indiana, it didn't go anywhere. But we had to be on board to monitor and make sure that we were in good shape. We also had to monitor both in Nebraska and Louisiana, which is interesting because last year we did have to go to bat and had to work extraordinarily hard in both Nebraska and Louisiana to remain exempt as an industry. Hired lobbyists, did all the work in the background that's required, and actually ended up in the clear in both Nebraska and Louisiana. So there's some follow-up to that this year that we're keeping an eye on. So really, it's a little state-by-state issues. We feel like we're in a pretty good spot. Maybe a good time to add just a little bit more about what's going on at the federal level in terms of regulatory or legislative actions. I'll mention that back in February, we had an engagement with Energy Star as they were working on guidance for commercial washers and dryers, more specifically their testing protocols. A lot of that technical stuff gets over my head pretty quickly, so we were able to loop in our manufacturer members to make sure that they're keeping an eye on what's happening on that front. But again, very important that we have this open channel where they, at the Energy Star, were willing to reach out to me and make sure that we had input from our folks. So that turned out pretty well. With President Trump's mention of the penny and his desire to stop minting the penny, almost immediately the coin composition legislation that we had worked against back 5, 6, 7 years ago was reintroduced and back into play. And again, taking no value judgment on the penny, what we're more interested in is the quarter. And this legislation, as previously introduced, would direct the mint to change the mode, method of manufacturing, including the composition, the alloy content, perhaps affecting the electromagnetic signature of coins, and knowing that that could be a problem for our industry if the quarter were to change. It could impact based on what coin drops, mechanisms, coin changers you may be using. could require a situation where you're trying to accept two different quarters, the old quarter and a newly formulated quarter that may come to market in the future. So at the moment, that legislation is not moving, but we are certainly keeping an eye on it and have had success weighing in on that topic in the past. One thing that we'd like to point out is that the penny costs 4 cents to make, whereas there's a profit on every quarter minted. In other words, the production costs are far less than the face value of the quarter. So we say, please just leave our quarter alone. So we'll continue to monitor that as we go forward. As I wrap up, this is another very important reason for you to be a member, to support the association, not just financially, but when I have these conversations with legislative staff, the very first thing they ask me is, how many members do you have and how many laundromats are in my representative's district? And so we need to be able to have great answers to those questions, and it's very, very important. So please get on board if you're not already. We need your help when it comes to protecting the best interests of our industry. And I'll also like to thank all of our CLA Strategic Corporate Ally partners. They have stepped up financially in a big way to make sure that we can afford to make these engagements when we need them. So very special thanks to all those companies that are supporting us at that level. You'll see their logos here. And if you get an opportunity, thank them on our behalf, because they are helping keeping our industry safe from any of those adverse bills, either at the federal or the state level. So in the meantime, we'll continue to keep you in the loop for any important issues that are going on legislatively, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.